Hello everybody, and you're very welcome to this virtual open day event here at WIT. My name is Clodagh Walsh of Speakeasy Communications and I'm your host for this session. But I am absolutely delighted now to introduce you to our very special guest today, the President of Waterford Institute of Technology, Professor Willie Donnelly. Professor, you're very welcome today.
Thank you, Clodagh.
We should start with congratulations, because on your award, the Institute of Technology for 2021, awarded from the Sunday Times Good University Guide. I believe also this is not the first time that the Institute has received this award, but it's certainly a real vote of confidence for WIT. So what does it mean for the Institute?
Yes, Clodagh, it's hugely important for the Institute. For us, it's really a recognition of our leadership. Our leadership not just in our own sector, but our leadership in education in Ireland. The thing about the awards is that it measures the performance of the Institute across a broad number of areas. So, for instance, it's a recognition of our leadership at the undergraduate level, the type and quality of those programmes. It's a recognition of our leadership at the fourth level PhD level. It's recognition of our research and innovation. The Institute itself, as I say, is a fantastic range of undergraduate programmes, from humanities through science, education and engineering. But also, we are the leaders in our sector in research and innovation. Last year we brought in 16 million euros in competitive research funding. That's higher than any other Institute of Technology. But that research funding impacts directly on our community. So, the economic and social development of the region, the southeast, the Institute has an important role to play in that. And this award recognises that. It recognises the impact of our innovation, the impact of our research on the economic and social development. But most importantly, a key part of the award is the feedback from your own students, where your own students fill in a questionnaire on how they feel about studying in Waterford Institute of Technology. And for us, it's a real vote of confidence. It's wonderful to know that your own students have voted you as an institute that's worth attending, an institute that looks after their needs, an institute where they feel very much part of that community. So we're delighted to have won this award.
That's fantastic. And there's a couple of things you mentioned there. So if we just look at research for the moment, I know that there's been a dramatic increase in funding for research over the last year. And you also were talking there about the students, and that the vote of confidence also comes from them. But in practical terms, the research work that you do, what effect does that have on the 17-year-old undergraduate?
Well, it informs our undergraduate teaching. I mean, we live in a knowledge economy. 17-year-old understands that knowledge is pervasive and knowledge changes very, very quickly. So how can we ensure that the teaching that we are doing today, the subjects that we're teaching, is relevant to that student, is relevant to the job opportunities that student is going to go into? How can we guarantee that we're at the forefront of that knowledge, that the knowledge that we're using, the course that they're on, the subjects that we are teaching, that we are the domain experts in that? That's true research and innovation. So research is the generation of knowledge. What we do then is we take that work, we take that knowledge and we map it into the undergraduate programs. But also we ensure that all of our students are research literate. What that means is that we give them the skill sets to allow them to do research, to carry out their own research. Why is that important? Because, 20, 30 years ago, if you were in a particular job, or if you were a graduate, you go into a job, you could say, okay, for 40 years I'm going to be doing this. The knowledge I have now is sufficient for my career. But if today, in a rapidly changing knowledge economy, students are going to have to, as graduates, re-educate themselves. They're going to have to manage their own professional development. So the skills that they get, thanks to our research and innovation at the undergraduate level, that gives them those skill sets after. But also, on another side, Clodagh just mentioned, the opportunities then that they have to go on after. When I came to the Waterford Institute of Technology in 1996, if you wanted to do postgraduate studies, you had to go to Dublin or Cork or whatever. Today, you can come into the institute, start on a certificate, and end up doing a PhD.
Because that's what I was just going to say to you, because I suppose, you know, at the institute, when the student comes in and they're looking at all the research and innovation that's going on, that if they're that way inclined, they actually see a really clear path of how they can do that and how they can follow that path or follow their career. But I suppose too, for a lot of students, you know, some students are quite clear about what they want to do and they have a good idea. But then there are other school leavers who think, yes, I want to go to college and I have a kind of a vague notion of what I'd like to do, or I'm not really sure what I want to do. So how does WIT, how do you support that type of student?
Yeah. No, I understand that very well. And for instance, my own niece is at that age where she's now going to decide what she wants to do in third level. And, you know, she has a vague idea of what she would like to do, but she's unclear, and that's normal. I mean, at 17, you know, how do you decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life? So we're aware of that, and there's a number of things that we have done that will actually help that student. So, for instance, we had open days where a student can come in and experience what's it like to study engineering. And there's a very interesting story there. One student I met who really wanted to do engineering came in, did the course and decided, well, engineering wasn't for them. And that was really important. And then they focused in another area and they decided to do something in humanities. So first and foremost, one of our principles is to provide opportunities for the students to investigate different programs, different courses, and that's one of them. Try engineering, try science, etc., etc. The other thing is we have a number of webinars where they can speak to the lecturers, they can speak to some other students and get a feeling for what they would like to do. Then in many cases people would like, I want to be an engineer. But what's the difference between a manufacturing engineer and electronic engineering? So what we have done over the last few years is that we've changed from domain-specific courses to general entry. And what that means is if you want to do engineering, you apply for general engineering. So in the first year, you can experience the various types of engineering: civil engineering, manufacturing engineering, electronic engineering, and then it's only in year 2 that you actually make that decision. So we've done that across science and across other areas, and it works very well. Definitely, you have to give opportunities for students to explore.
Yeah, that is very important, isn't it? And you know, you've mentioned humanities there, you've mentioned engineering, and you've mentioned also all like the different disciplines within engineering alone. So I know that the college has like a huge range of courses that it offers for students. But also I understand this year that you've actually started, if I'm correct, like 3 new courses?
Yes, we have 3 new courses. We have a new degree in business information systems. We have a degree in childhood studies, and that one is very much linked to the industry and to the people getting combining the academic educational environment with, you know, hands-on experience within the actual industry itself. And then the third one we have is a Bachelor in Engineering and Automation Systems. Automation is a huge area now, right across all parts of engineering and manufacturing. So that's a new area. And then we just recently got funding for a new degree in the area of additive systems, which is an engineering degree as well. So we're constantly reviewing and revising our programs. We're constantly updating the program. So we have new programs, but also going back to that idea of the changing economy and the changing knowledge society, we're constantly reviewing the content of the courses that we do deliver to ensure that they're relevant and up to date.
And that's obviously why WIT has been, you know, hugely successful. And I know at the moment most teaching and learning in third level institutions is happening online, being since they went back in September, obviously because of the situation that we find ourselves in with COVID-19. And I was reading an article this week, I think it may have been in the Times, and that they were talking about the fact that they were kind of advising or trying to encourage third level institutions to increase on-campus activity, particularly for first year students, because they were afraid of maybe a high dropout rate, and the fact that students aren't experiencing, you know, a traditional start, if you like, in college or university. So I suppose there are two issues there, Professor Donnelly. One is, first, how are the first years supported, particularly at WIT? And then the second issue, of course, is what's happening in relation to the COVID restrictions.
Yeah, sure. It's been a huge challenge, and particularly for first year students with COVID. I mean, they've had a very difficult year in the second level, and, you know, in the way they had to stop their studies and continue to work from home. And we're very aware of the fact that the first year students don't have a concept of what a third level experience is, third level education experience. So what we've done is a number of things. One is that we've developed a number of programs online, such as orientation program for the students, and we've given them an insight of what it's like to study in at third level, what they need to do. But more importantly, we've looked at how can we support students while they're here. So if the majority of the work is online, as say it's about 80% of the both. Just to say that teaching and tutorials are online. We've looked at support systems from our student life and learning. So we have online supports. They can always connect to those online supports. There's a person behind it. You can talk to a person. You can get advice. We've been doing this for a number of years. We have what's called a buddy system, where, and this is great, and this is a great example of how great our students are, not just our students, but that generation, where students who are in later years opt to be a buddy of a first year. So they have somebody in their own peer group who they can talk to, who can give them direction. So that's one of the things that we do. Our lecturers themselves organise regular meetings with the students online. Now it's still online, but to give them an opportunity to talk about their course and what the challenges are. That we have a long established reputation for sports in the institute itself, and our sports and student clubs and societies. They have looked at how to deliver those clubs and societies online, so that the students can participate in the clubs and societies. And it's not really about just going and listen to somebody who is talking about the clubs. It's about real participation and getting to know other people, because that's the most important thing for first year students, is to meet friends, is to meet other people on the same course, is to develop those relationships. So unfortunately, in the present system, we have to do a lot of that online, but we're doing it, and it's the feedback from the students is fantastic. They're happy with that. We also bring in the student union, and the student union have an events officer, and that events officer is working to ensure that there's social. It's not all about attending lectures or your education, but there's a number of social events that the students can participate in. Now, of course, the students who have laboratory work, or students who are in the arts that have kind of art studios, they still come into the institute. So, as I say, 20 to 25% of the education is still on site, and that gives them an opportunity, obviously, to meet their lecturers, to meet other students. But the feedback at the moment has been very good, very positive. The first year students don't feel that they're missing out on the third level experience, and we will continue to learn and develop that further.
Yeah, that, because it is very important, because it is such a huge part when you're starting out, when you're going to third level. And if we just now look forward, I suppose, and into the future a little bit. What's coming down the line, or can you tell us what's coming down the line in relation to the technological university status? Where are we on that front?
Well, yeah, ourselves and our colleagues and friends up in the IT Carlow are working together to deliver the Technological University of the South East. And of all the technological universities, this is the one that's the most important, because we don't have a university in the South East. And in many ways, the Waterford Institute of Technology has been playing that role for the South East. I've mentioned our research, I mentioned our innovation, etc. So ourselves and Carlow are working towards delivering a technological university of the South East. It's hoped that university will be created in January 2022. So that means that the students who are going to come in next year, the students who have come in this year, they will hopefully graduate as the first graduates from a technological university. That's hugely exciting. And it's not just a name change. This is an opportunity for us to build on that leadership that we already have, to further develop our reputation internationally. What we really focused on is developing a university of international value, a university that performs at the highest international level, that's recognised within the international community as a leading university. So lots of exciting opportunities there, but for the students coming in, it's the fact that they will probably be some of the first graduates from this new university. It's very exciting.
That is very exciting. And I suppose something else that probably plays into that is capital investment and expansion, like physical expansion as well of WIT, because that is happening as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I'm delighted to say that the government had a competitive call for a public-private partnership investment in third level education, and Waterford received the largest award from that. So what we have is the investment in a new 14,800 square metre building. Now this is a very exciting building from our perspective, because the building is going to support engineering, computer science and humanities. So this is bringing together, which wouldn't naturally happen. And naturally you have humanities over there, you have the sciences over there. But the new building, which will include teaching rooms, lecture theatres, laboratories, state-of-the-art communication technologies. This is a real opportunity for us to really begin to look at, in a practical way, how we will migrate to a more dynamic educational environment, how we can look at multidisciplinary programs. So you talked about new programs. In the future, increasingly the job market is going to be about multidisciplinarity, the skills that you get from the creative arts with the skills that you get from engineering and science. And this gives us an opportunity to bring those together. But also, research will be located in the building. So I talked before about how research informs the undergraduate programme, but also we're looking at greater participation by the stakeholders, by industry. So we're looking at an environment where industry can come in, where we can work together as we do today, but in a much more kind of not professional, but in a much more dynamic way, in where we and the industry can work together to design and deliver bespoke programs for industry. So we do a lot of that at the moment. We have specialist programs for industry, continuous professional development. But this will give us an opportunity to really accelerate that. And one of the things I would love to see in the future is greater participation by experts in industry, working with our own academic staff to deliver programs to give to students that experience. But it'd be wonderful. I mean, you can imagine there's many students. We started about students not knowing what to want to do. It'd be wonderful to have a situation where you have a love for arts, but you also like computer science, and you go and study both of them together, right? So you do medieval history and you're doing computer science. It'd be wonderful. And that's the type of environment we want to create.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. And also it's it's expanding everybody's way of thinking as well, and your perspective and your way of looking at things. You mentioned a couple of things there when you were talking about employment. Are there statistics around, or can you talk to me a little bit about, say, the rate of employment for graduates who leave WIT?
Yes, I mean, one of the reasons, going back to the award as Institute of Technology of the Year, one of the metrics also was the employability. And it's very interesting, direct employability of our graduates is up over 80 to 90%. Now, people, when they talk about, and there's kind of a lesson here, when people talk about choosing the right course, to say, oh, go for science or go for engineering because you're guaranteed employment. And you would expect to have a high employability in that area. But our largest school is humanities, the arts, humanities, okay? And yet we have 80 to 90% employability. So it shows that, you know, our students, it's the reputation, it goes back to the quality of the teaching, I would hope. It goes back to the reputation of the institute and the skill sets you get there, that irrespective if you're coming out of the School of Humanities, of Business, of Engineering, of Science, of Health Science, you know, another important area, that you are sought after as a graduate by the industries in those areas. So we're very proud of the fact that we are continue to if you like, we continue to balance the kind of focusing in on getting a job with providing students with the skill sets and the education that allows them to, you know, develop as a member of society, develop as a human being, develop their own personality and their own kind of skill set. So we kind of think very much in terms of personalisation of education towards the student. What does that mean? It means that, you know, students, it goes back to what we were talking about, you know, if students comes in and their aspiration is, I want to do a 2-year degree, we hope that by the time they get to the end of it, they might say, well, maybe I want to do more, or maybe I go out now and come back later. But it's allowing every student to reach their potential, and that gives the student the confidence, which then, when they go for employment, the employer sees that, and that's why we have such a high level of employability of the students. Is that combination?
I think you may have actually answered the next question that I was going to ask you. I mean, obviously we have a lot of parents looking in today as well, and, you know, I was going to say to you, if a son or daughter of some of those parents was thinking of you know, coming here to study, what would you say to the parents? But I think you've probably answered that for me already, really, in your last answer.
Yeah, I mean, I would reinforce and then it goes back, you know, a parent student comes in and says, I want to do A, and they go, oh my God, no, do something else. First of all, it's the reputation of the institute. Waterford Institute of Technology has a reputation that's recognised around the world. Doesn't matter if you're in Australia, if you're in the US, if you're in Europe, or if you're in the Southeast, and hopefully many people will stay in the Southeast or go away and come back to the Southeast. It's a name that's recognised for quality. It's a name that, you know, guarantees that you're as a graduate have reached a certain level. I think the other thing is that we're hugely student-centric. Now, lots of people say that. What does that mean? What it actually means is that the student that comes in, that personalisation of the programme around the student, that we've invested hugely in giving supports and implementing supports for the student. We've invested hugely in developing a community for the student. But most importantly, going back to the research and the innovation in the undergraduate programme, that the quality of the education in Waterford Institute of Technology is second to none. So, you know, it's you go to a university, yeah, and, you know, we're not. I'll give you an example about where you go to. When we run the Try Engineering, we're not trying to sell the institute to the student. Of course, we'd love the student to come to the institute. What we're trying to say is make sure the student is in the right programme, right? And, you know, when the student comes in here, we will work with the student to ensure that they meet their full potential. We want very, very a well-known and very good researcher here. He started on a certificate, went through a diploma, went through a degree, did a PhD, and now he's a world leader in his area of research. That's wonderful. That's the type of environment. So what I would say to the parents are, A, the reputation is there. B, we care about students. C, we will ensure that they reach their potential. Of course, the student has to do a bit of work as well. So
that. They can't just come in and
no guarantees if the student doesn't do the work, but definitely this is an environment where students will reach their potential and thrive.
And also, I suppose the point when you're talking about that researcher as well, and we hear it being bandied around, but it is actually so true. If you can see it, you can be it, and I think that's really important. And I know today that we've been, talking about school leavers, I suppose, and undergraduates mostly, but age isn't, or certainly shouldn't be, a barrier to learning, and there's a lot on offer at WIT for, say, older learners or more mature students.
Oh yeah, and this is hugely important to us, and we don't want to lose this when we become a university. Access. Allowing access and giving access to a broad range of students. So 40% of our students that come in come through non-standard routes. What that means is they're not your typical 18-year-olds that's done the Leaving Cert. They're people who may have been in work and decided to go back. There may be people who, are changing jobs. There may be people who didn't do the Leaving Cert and are coming in through the further education route, people who did the Leaving Cert through further education. So our philosophy is that we have created an environment where all students, irrespective of age, irrespective of their previous experience, can reach their potential. And that's hugely important to us because the massification of education and the rapidly changing work environment means that people are always going to have to change their skill sets. People are always going to have to maybe look at other opportunities for retraining. And I'll give you a good example, Clodagh. During the pandemic, COVID-19, we know many people are going to lose their jobs or have lost their jobs in certain industries. We have developed a number of short-term courses which people can apply for. They're free, they can come, and they're really reskilling and retraining people who are in industry. And extraordinary, one of the courses that we put up, we thought we might get 20 or 30 people who are interested. We got 240 applications. So there's a demand there, and we're ready to respond to that demand. But yeah, the environment, the education environment we have created is for everybody. It's to work with everybody, whether you're a mature student, and mature students are so much an important part of our environment. In actual fact, last year we graduated our oldest student, who was in his 70s, and I can tell you, the younger students in the classroom learned so much from that person. And that's the other thing, is it's hugely important that in an education environment you have this mix. So it's definitely, there are opportunities in the Institute for people from who come through the normal route, through the Leaving Cert and other routes as well.
I remember actually when that man graduated, as far as I can remember, there was a really beautiful photograph on the front of the Irish Times with him surrounded by all the students. And it really captured, I think, something very special, and captured, I think, what you're talking about the ethos and the feel of the Institute. I know we're nearly coming up to our time now, but before we finish, I just wanted to ask you as well, can you tell me a little bit about the President's Scholarship, please?
Oh yeah, this again, following on from that philosophy. There's too much focus on the CEO and points and getting certain points, and we believe that there's more to the student, there's more to the student experience of that. So looking around, we said, how can we communicate the fact that education is not just about points, it's about people, and it's about personal development, and it's about people's contribution to their community, because at the end of the day, what we want to do is graduate members, active members of society. So what we came up with was, we said, okay, we're going to have a scholarship where students can apply for one of those scholarships. There's 5, one in each of the schools. And they will be evaluated not on their academic performance, but on their contribution to society. Obviously, they can talk about their academic performance. But the most important thing is for them, in their personal statement and in their submission, to talk about themselves, what have they done. So it may be, that within your own society you've organised groups for younger children to do something, you organise support in your local sports club, you organised and worked with older members of your community. Whatever, it's up to you to explain what you have contributed to your community, to your society, and why you should be considered for the award. So the award itself is a grant which is given to students every year. The good thing about it is they come in and they are the institute offers them a position before the CEO positions are offered, so they don't need to go through the CEO. You see, now obviously they need the minimum required to enter a course, but it's not based on points, and that's the principle. And the really interesting thing is our first group of President Scholars graduated this year. We haven't had one single dropout in the 4 years that we've been doing the President Scholars thing. So what does that tell you? It tells you that people, if they go into a course that they're committed and interested in, if they are people who are energetic and committed to succeed. It's not points that define your worth to and your ability to perform and to develop yourself in education.
I know it's not, and it's very hard. It's very hard to explain that to a school leaver who has to get the points if they want to get. But there's lots of ways to skin a cat, and there's lots of ways to move forward. I think in your education and your career, absolutely. And there's always room. I think there's always room for manoeuvre, and it's really important that students know that. And finally, Professor Donnelly, if you were to give one piece of advice to any student starting out, what would it be?
Okay, I'd give one advice to students who are now looking to go to third level, okay? And that is, first of all, really look at what you like to do, what's important to you, which programs do you find exciting, to, when you fill in the CEO, to put in multiple options. And so that if you don't get your first choice, maybe your second choice, third choice. I mean, in my own experience, I went back to college as a mature student. I should have done something sensible. I did do science, but then I went off and did a PhD in particle physics. So I came out as a mature married student with a PhD in an area that had no jobs in Ireland, absolutely none. But from that, I then went into computer science. I then went into telecommunications. I then went into education. Because the one thing that drove me all the time was my passion and my interest and my curiosity. So this idea of choosing something because there's a job at the end of it, you won't survive 4 years doing that. If you choose something because you have a passion for it, it means something to you, you have an energy to put into it, that's the first thing. The second piece of advice, so it's more than one piece of advice, is find out what it's about. So if you look at our courses of try engineering. So if you're interested in something, talk to people who might be in the profession, talk to other students who have already done it, and find out what is it really like on the ground, what is it like to do this subject in third level, and then make up your own mind. And once you do that, of course, discuss it with your parents. They have a lot of world experience as well. So that's my advice is, do something because it means something to you.
That's very good advice. So Professor Willie Donnelly, President of the Waterford Institute of Technology, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today, for joining us here today, and for sharing your knowledge and your insight. Thank you very much. And indeed, thank you very much to you for joining us online as well. And remember that all the information that you need, you will find on the website, which is wit.ie. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Clodagh. Bye.